read my poetry, and so much of it, in the South, I think we're torn so much who the hell we are. We have the old tradition of how we're supposed to act and put our knife and fork, and then how we just want to dig into our food, so to speak. There's just so many things working against each other. Growing up, I'm from river area, so to speak, in Mississippi in the Delta, and while I was hunting and fishing and feeling part of tradition, also I had color hair and skateboarded and smoked dope. So it was this big contrast of where do I belong and what do I belong. So hopefully through these poems you'll feel that. I guess I'm Lusk Coppage. I'm third year at McNeese. Sorry if I have such an old friendly audience right here. Entourage. But yeah, I'm going to start off with some poems with Mississippi, and I know that obviously we're focusing on Louisiana here, but I do think river culture is really similar to Mississippi in here, although this is not river culture, so some of it might sound strange. But we're going to start off, this first poem, I just can't sit down when I read, I'm sorry, is called Harvest on the Mississippi. In the near standstill traffic, I think of wild children, bruised and dirty, fishing in rice field runoffs while miles away their fathers click and call, crackling orders over CBs to work truck blacks who drink Dixie cups of spiked coffee and race through fields of soybeans pulling loaded hoppers. The man in the tractor waves me past into this newly yellowed land. His black hand, large and lively, pulls at the air. I edge around the spiral blades and pass. Back in my lane, ahead, tugboats resting heavy in burnt waters methodically churn the river. And from this distance, the frothy wake appears heavenly, like cotton that once burst from ripened bowls, where in youth's savage memory, its white, dense wetness streams from finger to finger in great delight. I guess many times in some of these poems I'll reference cotton. Cotton's a thing of the past in the South, and that to me is addressing tradition, the identity of the past. And now it's corn, and the upsetting thing is, you might have been in a cornfield before, you can't see around you. It is limiting. Where cotton was endless possibilities, you could see over it, and that's just something I really miss, and I hate the newer generations growing up will not get to experience kind of infinite possibilities. They'll be limited by just the 5 feet of roads they can see around. The next poem is called Playing War, and just one of those growing up in Mississippi poems. It's called Playing War. We heard how when the big one dropped on Japan, some folks survived by hiding in their fridges. This, of course, was untrue. A mere exaggeration traveling adolescent years. And the year we knew it to be false was the year we found an abandoned trucking yard, a landscape for water balloons and bottle rockets of mock war. And one idea turned into another, and then turned into a dare, and bets were stacked against the new kid with a northern accent and all he had to prove. From chemistry kits, we gathered saltpeter, sulfur, charcoal, the innocent ingredients of gunpowder. We knew kerosene burned slower than gasoline and filled spent 2-liter soda bottles, capping them at the brim. And the day we stopped believing, we watched the new kid climb into the stale air of the ancient Frigidaire. We hooted and hollered our war cries as Roman candles spat at our target. And as if teasing each other and that poor boy inside, we took our time with bad aim. But when ignition took place, we waited, silent. Whimpers turned into screams, and the child burst from inside and rolled to the ground, clothing singed to his blistered skin. And as half the kids ran off, some for home, others for adults, the fridge smoldered and became a skeleton. It was then I thought of those in Japan, right before they disappeared. If some did try to hide in their frosted electric coffins, what did they have to prove? Their kitchen floors, littered with rice noodle leftovers, held its breath for a last second, while one, maybe two, stuffed inside with let-out cries, barely audible through the cold steel shell. This kind of takes on a little bit of a new meaning, I guess, with like I lived 2 years in Japan, so there's another poem that I included for today that is referencing Japan. The next few poems really does dive into the landscape for me of Mississippi or of the South. And it's that hunting. I don't know if any of y'all hunt. I hate hunting. I'm a vegan now, but even before that, waking up at like ass crack of dawn, and nothing is really what it really seems. Your nerves are on end. But I did go hunting all the time with my father, and I was horrible shot, horrible at it. And dove hunting, which I did come to love because you got to shoot the gun more, it was just confusing as hell. I'm a horrible shot with birds flying around. So this is called Bird Hunt at Dawn. As the fields begin to rise over the broken tree line, the fields yellow like nicotine-stained fingers. Fog slowly falls, and I cannot see Father. Only hear they come in low. Hold your gun steady. Last week I would have made Buffalo Bill proud, cracking clay pigeons with a snap. But as the first shots ring out, I'm still blinded by the mist. 3 o'clock, a voice shouts, I spin. 12 o'clock, another yells. Raising my gun to my shoulder, I fire blindly into the devil-red sun. And voices gallop around me, and the smell of sulfur charges into my face. And when I can finally see, next to me is Father, brushing feathers from his shirt. 9 o'clock, blood on his hands, he lifts his gun. I still am a horrible shot. We shot some pumpkins over Christmas break. They don't move. I could get them. This is another one of my animal poems. Once you learn the power of shooting a gun, you think you can shoot it at anything. You know, once you think you have it harnessed, but you really don't. But once you think that you know how to shoot, you always try to sneak it out whenever you can, growing up, and shoot anything. So this one's called The Fall. Mom complained of possums eating up her tomatoes, and one night after the neighbor's dog started, I snuck out my window with Dad's old rifle. 2 yellow eyes ran up the fence, but one crack of the rifle took it down. Mom pulled a trash can from around the side. She held the flashlight on the blind, hairless children, edging their way from the dead possum's pouch. And they squirmed and gyrated on the shovel's cold blade, but made no noise during those last moments of their weightlessness. Has anybody ever seen a pregnant possum? Well, that's weird shit. I hope I've never made it so much. Those little hairless, like this big, they look like little mini pigs. Interesting. I'm going to move into, with identity, all the time people say it's not what you're like, but what you do like. And for me, growing up, and even now, it's blues music is so important to me. And really, I guess the music scene of blues and jazz and all the bars. And I try to visit all the little juke joints in the edge of town, and always just want to be wrapped up in that. So these next few poems are based on those experiences. But this first one is called The Continuing Story of Robert Johnson. And I took the liberty to say, what if he didn't die? Kind of what if there was this supernatural power and he kept on living and he was in, no one knew that he was not dead and he had to take on a new life. He was kind of like a vampire or something like that. The Continuing Story of Robert Johnson. In this life, he sops his wife's plate. In this life, he sops his plate with his wife's biscuits, gulps down cream coffee over the Morning Tribune, and after the sports, he picks obituaries for old friends. But they are gone, and all that's left, calloused fingers, a scarred right hand from a rusty blade, and a burning ulcer, the gluttonous sins of booze and hog knuckles. And don't forget the belly full of poison that lingers still. But he doesn't talk about those things anymore. It's only on nights when the silence of life scrapes against his eardrums and the easy pour bourbon fills his fat gate, he takes his guitar out and fingers the strings. While he thumbs, old molting crows collect outside, and his wife, weak, dips down low. As she sways, she calls out, "Daddy." His eager eyes follow the seam of her dress ascending above her knees. And on those charged nights that he lays on top of her, there is no blood as her teeth bite the fat of the palm he holds to muffle her mouth as she moans, "Oh God, oh God." This next one, again with the music, this one's with jazz. When I say Billy, I'm referring to Billie Holiday. Title point's Blue Note. Blue Note's kind of like a dominant seventh or a note right before, kind of a tone right before a resolving note, so it's kind of honking. It's just that sour note, but it's beautiful, you know. And I think masters of musician, they learn how to harness that sour note. So I do reference that just in case. I realize these are mostly drinking poems. You have like an alcoholic conference, don't you? Blue Note. The bourbon burns my nose before it reaches my lips, and I taste fingertips, soured from nicotine, and watch the flicked ash pirouette off the bar. The jukebox's loping serenade comes to a close, but Billy's voice breaks the silence and calls for a tight crescendo. The drums snap and roll until melody's last line trickles out. And the bartender pours another round, and now I taste my father. His memory sits on the back porch where Charlie Parker bops in the background. His eyes follow ducks gliding over the lake's surface. One dives underneath, and before it returns, father leaves, fixes a drink. The sun sets in the purple sky, and he tastes the cascade of oak and aged cherry that warms the saxophone's honking blue notes. My hands wrap the bar to the jukebox's new tune. And the bartender signals to the outlines of a wooden stage. He says, "This used to be a jazz joint that Bird slumped and smacked out, hid in the back." He points behind a row of bottles to a great day in Harlem. And I look at those men full of anger and smiles. "All of them cats played here," he says. But I know the picture, and Bird is not there. And I am not there, sitting to the right of my father. Instead, I am here, left with the fragments of a melody, syncopated memories that lead me to no resolution, no blue notes on the upbeat to bring it all back home. Another jazz poem. Rita, some time ago, let me read William Matthews, and it just blew my mind. And I can't remember the title of the poem now, where he talks about seeing Mingus, and he was ready for this experience to blow him away, and instead it was just kind of like just an awful experience. So I reference William Matthews in this poem, but it's my ode to Mingus. The title is "Your Name Repeats Like Marching Elephants." Mingus, your middle finger points up so many times it's cramped crooked, but all I hear is meeting strings, a thrum that shakes the city block stage. Mingus, in a dream I watch William Matthews watch you wipe your ass with his poem. You digest literature and shit experience. The stage is yours, fire them all. Mingus, the audience throws cornbread pies. Mingus, in a white face except for your eyes. Mingus, no one's left to hear you call yourself boy. Even his name has so much authority. That's just amazing. There's a great documentary, an old black and white documentary on Mingus, where he shoots up his apartment with a shotgun. And, can't remember the name, so Triumph of the Underdog. Watch that. Music lesson for that. Again, with the idea of identity, I spent 4.5 years in the Air Force, and like I said, some time in Europe. 2 of those years was in Japan. You know, the truth is, or the poem's always more important than the truth, but this one is a poem that does have some truth in it. I was in basic training during the 4th of July, and you would think that's like this holy experience. The fact that, you know, it's the 4th of July, and you're in the military now, and you're all gung-ho. It's like a second day there, and there was a big parade going on, but we were not allowed to go. We had to stay, and that always just stuck with me. So we couldn't go celebrate while we were doing. So it's called Training on the 4th of July. My head is freshly shaven, lights flick off, then on. 2 more minutes, hit those bumps, yells a voice, marching bed road. A baton clinks woodenly on the metal frame bunk bed. Brown shirts scramble, hide away boots and polish, then peel back layers of moss drab sheets. Outside, fireworks sizzle, and each flash projects a chain-link silhouette against the bare walls. And although the voices over the loudspeakers sing, oh say, can you see? I cannot. I remember getting in an argument with a poet about that, going like, there's no way in hell that would happen. They would let you go. You know, I want to be like, you're right, the poem should be more important, but I don't know. I'm sure most of y'all have been in Europe at some point, and if you talk to a bunch of locals there, they'll ask you stuff about things you don't know about, especially that we live here in Louisiana. They'll ask you like, how's Hollywood? You know, what's Tom Cruise doing? You know, you're like, I don't know. I'm sorry. You know, and then they look at you like you're an idiot because you don't. What does Donald Trump really wear a hairpiece? I don't know. And they ask these really absurd questions, and you feel helpless a good bit of time, or at least from my experience, the time I spent in Europe, I felt helpless. So it was during Kosovo. So that's why in the title it says it's called Furlough May '99. So '99 to point out that it was just during the Kosovo conflict. But again, Furlough May '99. Does everybody know what furlough is? It's not like a vacation. Furlough May '99. While my uniform sleeps on a chair back next to unpolished boots, I barrel deep through the broken roads, race far away from RAF Mildenhall. My date, a local girl, laughs at my accent as I call out tongue-heavy signs of the English countryside. The same way tourists back home parse through Tishomingo and Kosciuszko. She asked me about America, then New York, and Hollywood. She asked me of the war. She asked me if I'm lost, and then of other things that I know nothing about. America's not lost, I say, only losing. And she crosses her legs. My tongue continues to play its roadside games, and a half an hour later, we're at the club's parking lot. And inside there is dance and the drink of stout pints and endless rows of shots until my voice slurs. And in the moment where the strobe lights flicker and music is felt from the ground up, the heat from her skin radiates and twists with mine. And this is when I forget war stars and unraveling stripes. But as house music comes up and the heavy bass retreats, the DJ calls into the mic. But drenched in sweat and new sadness, I raise my hands and surrender to the night and scream, no more, no more. I know tomorrow my head will hang hung over in my hands. I know tomorrow I will write insincere letters to a lover back home. I know now, miles away, fighters taxi down a runway with wings heavy and armed. This is another, the next two, I guess, are military poems, so to speak. they try to brainwash you in there. You know, everybody needs to go. You know, it took a long time for me to adjust the idea that there's always something going on. You got to do something while you're in the military. You know, you're always taking care of aircraft. The responsibility in the military and out, you have responsibility now, but people can go on their own pace in this world, you know, and in the military you didn't have your own pace. So it took me a long time to adjust. So I'm glad now I can kind of reflect back on that. But this, like I said, I was in Japan for 2 years. This next one's called Good Luck on New Year's Day. And it was a scene I witnessed. So, you know, this festival parades for New Year's. The dragon scales drip gold and red, and babies in strollers cry as their parents usher them up to the front one by one. Wooden jaws snap on toddlers' toes and cries echo through the crowd. A taiko drum roars against the breath of the shamasan's plucked strings, and the dragon twists in delicate waves. 20 tiny feet tangle inside. The dog stops in the road he is afraid to cross. You know, looking back, one of the things that's really odd about that, it was a parade on New Year's Day, but it was the American, or not the American, I want to say American New Year, but it was not Western. It was Western New Year's, and how they would put on a Okinawa. I don't know, Okinawa was so military based in general. It was such a weird scene. This last one for the military poems, I guess, is really me trying to let go of, or not me, but the speaker. But the epigraph is September 15th, 2001. I got out just 4 days after September 11th, and it was like the first flight from overseas flight to the States, so I got stuck in Seattle for like a week and a half, and then like took a hop over to like I was in Chicago, and then to Memphis, and then like back to Dallas. You know, it took me like 2 weeks before I got home, which I was grateful. But my first day there was an amazing day in Seattle, and to be out of the military. So it's called In Salmon's Eyes, or In the Salmon's Eyes. As the 12 men danced on the banks of Puget Sound, their tan skin beaded, flickered with each spin and kick. Behind them, the nation's canoes filled the water, creating a floating bridge across the purple horizon. 24 hours ago, I was overseas, consumed by the Pacific, knee-deep in combat boots and camouflage, with whaling-based sirens and flight lines filled with missiles and men. But this day, I blended with Seattle, drunk on dark ale and bliss. I wasn't worried about the following days, or the TV with its images of horror, nor did I waste my energy on delayed flights that would eventually take me home. It was this day I had no real place. A turquoise-faced man lifted his hands as if to conduct the crowd. And chanting in pentatonics, he sang, "Welcome the new moon, welcome the salmon, farewell the sun." As canoes paddled towards their moon, the crowds left. But before I trekked back across the port city, I watched a minivan stroll into the pavilion. The decorated men boxed up drums and rattle, then stripped their deerskin to reveal jeans and t-shirt. I remember black feathers remained in their hair, and how the men, joyous of the day, they all embraced. I have a couple more, and I really do thank y'all for making it here. These last few poems, I'm returning to Mississippi for these poems. Daryl Bort last week said that kind of as a writer we have everything. He was paraphrasing somebody else, or somewhere I'm paraphrasing him, but we have everything we need by like age 8 or 9, you know. These next poems, though, will go into not so much 8 or 9, but more or less those formative years that we all hate, like the adolescent years. And, like I said, it was a struggle for me. I think for all of us, anybody that any writer, I think we relish in the misery of our youth. But this first one is actually kind of coming back. I thought this would segue into the Mississippi poems again, and it's called The Levee, and it's just about returning. the Levee. I hit 50 in the straightaways, watch dust and rocks rooster tail in the clouds. Cow shit litters the loose gravel, piles and piles like landmines out to slow my truck's speed. The levee curves and the river snakes along. A herd of cows block my path with mouths chock full of cud. And out my window the wild river winks with the blink of sun rays. She allures with hellhounds and hoochie coos, shotgun houses that serve homemade barbecue, and broken down blues of lost angels. The river's rule is guarded by the leftover industries of failed revolution, the heartless textiles, the feedless grain bins, the salvage yards full of forgotten tugs and rust-riddled barges, the marina's docks with overgrown ramps permanently parked under the neon glowing casino lights. The bovine steps slowly out of my path, tired from pondering my purpose. But I'm the one left with the questions that lead down a dirt road to a dead cityscape. Under whose watch did this town fall asleep? I think the last two that I'm going to read, they're in conversation with each other. Like I said, I left home and tried to kind of travel the world, and that last point ended with under whose watch did this town fall asleep? And so this kind of addresses some of the people that stayed, maybe, I guess. It's called End of Days. 17 and reckless as a crusader pillaging his own holy land, I heave beer bottles, rip lawns, and cleave mailboxes into disintegration. Blessed be the single stoplight streets and the lacks of laws enforced. But this town, however, is a river bird, and I am the carcass of a washed-up catfish crawling with maggots and horseflies all over. But one more year and then I'm gone. I will leave the smell of the river, the butter and bacon simmering in blackened skillets. I will leave the bayou's blood-sucking pawn shop and casinos. I will leave my friends to become what they will. JD, a lawyer, Bert, a banker, and Brandon will end up a doctor. But I have one more year to spend Friday nights watching hometown heroes host their gladiatorial games. I will sit numb amongst the roar and dream of dance team debutantes, the sinless daughters of God, already woman enough to pee outside and drink Jaeger warm. One more year of camouflage patterns and wrongs of passages, roadsides strewn with gutted abdomen of deer and dove, and dark mornings at 5 when nothing is or should be alive. I will leave the black mud that squishes between my toes as the river's currents kick driftwood, creating a charred soul demon. I will leave this land of cotton, hidden under clouds that lounge over the blood-stained ground, and wait for the wind to again whisper Dixie. I felt like I ended that like it was a question. I'm Ron Burgundy. Again, thank y'all so much. This will be my last poem. Obviously, if y'all do have a question, just talk to me. It's called A Mile Off the Highway. This last one and the one before it is part of, since y'all live here in Lafayette, to let y'all know, in June we do a Vision Verse project in Lake Charles, and we make frastic poems with local artists, and Daryl Bork and Julie Kane. Ava Heyman's going to be there this year, and that's June 6th? 4th. Yeah. So please come down.
I don't think anybody here lives in Lafayette except for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's right. You don't work here, but you live here.
Yes, I don't work here, but I do live here.
So, A Mile Off the Highway. We know which country stores sell us booze and leave illuminated under the cracked neon crown of RC Cola. We drink the collective whiskey like communal wine and smoke the last of our parents' cigarettes. We share our stash and plan midnight rendezvous to all-night diners. With folded menus, we sit lost in the spirals of coffee cream hallucinations, while flamingo pink waitresses and born-again truckers, both with amphetamine eyes, speak in non-stop whispers. We tell girlfriend fantasies of those we never talk with and what their lip gloss tastes like. A mix of peppermint and coconut and cherry all blended together to tease. We talk shit of our town and conjure imaginary escapes in borrowed cars while we search for borrowed ideas that we read in borrowed books. But still, our small lips tremble at big names like New York, New York. And although we never admit, we gather together for protection. All of us clad in Converse and flannel, a one-star army of dyed hair and chain walls, because sometimes all we have are each other.